Hello, and welcome to Own Your Retirement. My name is Albert Lalonde from Kaizen Financial. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 586-752-7008 or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen. And while on my website, click on my podcast page to check out our past shows and to subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. All right. When people think about retirement planning, their minds usually go straight to savings, investments, and income. But for many retirees, some of the biggest surprises don't come from the markets. They actually come from healthcare. Yes, healthcare decisions often build quietly over time. They may not feel, well, let's say urgent at first, but they can have a meaningful impact on both finances and quality of life as retirement unfolds. That's why we wanted to spend some time on this topic today. Now, for today's conversation, we'll be sharing insights and statistics from a recent Forbes article titled Five Mistakes Retirees Might Make Regarding Healthcare. Now, the article highlights common missteps retirees and near retirees can make, not because they aren't thoughtful planners, but because healthcare is one of the more complex and misunderstood parts of retirement. And to help keep this, let's say, conversation grounded and we'll make it relatable, I'm joined by my co-host, Tony Shore, who here to represent the listener, and he's going to jump in whenever we need to slow things down or clarify a point. Hey, Tony, how we doing, buddy?
Well, yeah, good. That's my role, to ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
You're here with the answers. I'm here for questions, and to once in a while just bring up pizza for no reason
There we go.
whatsoever. Just
Today, Fat Tuesday. Just saying.
it is Fat Tuesday. You're right. Mardi Gras is going on in New Orleans.
Yeah. Well, can I say this? So we have Tim Hortons over here in Michigan, obviously, Canadian company border. And I went there to get punchkis, and guess what? Not one punchkis for Fat Tuesday. So
what?
I was stuck with regular donuts for.
Well, they sold out?
No. Canadian donut company.
Oh, yeah.
They must not understand punchkis.
No,
anyways,
they don't. We digress. Beignets? Did they have any beignets?
Yes, they had a little bit. Yeah, so we got a variety of everything. So the staff is all taken care of for Fat Tuesday.
Good. Well, hey, I think hopefully I'll ask some questions that people are thinking, but might not always ask. We want to keep it practical.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a good show. Right?
Yeah. Well, like we said, this doesn't need to be technical to be useful.
Right.
It's really about awareness and understanding where people tend to get tripped up so they can make more, let's say, confident decisions over time.
Right.
Now, one of the reasons this topic comes up so often in conversation with retirees and people approaching retirement is simple. Healthcare costs create a lot of uncertainty. If you're worried about what healthcare might cost you in retirement, well, you're definitely not alone. In fact, according to a recent survey referenced in that Forbes article we're discussing today, nearly 2 out of 3 boomer respondents said that expensive healthcare costs are one of their top retirement fears. And then more than 2/3 of respondents worried that a single large healthcare issue could disrupt their finances for years. So that tells us something important. This isn't a fringe concern, and it's not just about everyday expenses. For many people, the fear is that one unexpected healthcare event could actually throw everything off balance.
Yeah. Well, it can, and that's what you have to watch out for, and that's what we need you for. And I think that kind of worry, though, can sit in the background for a long time, even if everything else in your retirement plan feels solid, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I see this all the time. But one of the key points the article makes is that I guess I agree with this strongly, is that worry by itself isn't a strategy. Okay. Feeling concerned is understandable, but it doesn't actually move you closer to clarity or confidence. Now, what does help It's understanding where people tend to go wrong and how better information can lead to better choices. So that's why this article focuses on 5 common mistakes pre-retirees and retirees make when it does come to healthcare, and just as importantly, how those mistakes can actually be corrected.
Right. And so this isn't about predicting the future, right? Or trying to eliminate every risk then, correct?
Right. I wish I had a crystal ball for that, buddy, but I don't. This is actually about being informed, asking better questions, and then making thoughtful decisions instead of letting fear drive the process.
Okay. And with that in mind, let's start with the first mistake.
Okay. So the first mistakes the article points to is not budgeting for increased healthcare costs in retirement. And this is one I see catching people off guard more often than they expect. So many new retirees are surprised to learn that their healthcare premiums and out of pocket expenses can actually be significantly higher than what they paid while they were working. And when you're covered, let's say under an employer sponsored plan, it's easy to underestimate just how much of the cost your employer was absorbing on your behalf. Now, according to the survey reference in the article, 40% of retirees don't actually know how much they expect to pay for healthcare in retirement. That uncertainty alone can make planning so much harder than it needs to be, Tony.
Yeah. Well, and we don't want to make it harder than it has to be. And the gap you're talking about is a big one, especially for something
Mhm.
that shows up as a monthly expense, right?
Yeah, it is. And the issue can be even more pronounced for people who want to retire before they're eligible for Medicare at age 65. That's why a lot of people wait to age 65. Now, for those individuals, healthcare coverage often means purchasing insurance on their own. And the article notes that monthly premiums can easily exceed over $1,000 per person. And when you put that into context, it becomes clear why this mistakes matter so much. If those premiums aren't accounted for ahead of time, well, they can put real pressure on that retirement budget.
Well, sure it can, and that's huge, right? I mean, it's not just a technical detail you're talking about. It can affect the timing of retirement itself.
Precisely. And that's why the article emphasizes the importance of understanding whether these healthcare costs will realistically fit into your retirement budget before you decide to retire. Now, it's not about discouraging early retirement or any specific timeline. It's about making sure the numbers align with the lifestyle you're planning for. And when healthcare costs are acknowledged up front, well, they become something you can now plan around. When they're ignored or underestimated, well, guess what? They tend to show up as an unpleasant surprise.
Right. Yeah, and which is not how anybody wants to start retirement, correct?
Right. And that would lead us naturally into the next mistake the article highlights here.
And so if somebody hears Medicare and thinks, "Oh, that's handled then," that's an oversimplification, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, exactly. In fact, the issue of this, what this article actually points out on this, many people assume Medicare will work just like the employer-sponsored healthcare coverage they had while they were working. But in practice, it's actually very different. See, Medicare is made up of multiple parts, and each of those parts has its own deductibles and co-payments. In fact, in many cases, those out of pocket costs are higher than what people were used to paying actually under an employer sponsored plan.
Yeah, and that can be surprising, especially if someone hasn't looked closely at how Medicare actually works.
Yes, for sure. And that's why the article stresses the importance of planning ahead for these costs. And it's not enough to know that Medicare exists. You also need to understand how deductibles and co-payments might show up in your budget after you retire. Now, taking the time to estimate those potential out-of-pocket expenses allows you to see whether realistically it fits within your retirement income plan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big. And so it really builds on that first mistake because if you don't account for these pieces, the budget can start to feel tighter than expected, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. You said it correctly there, Tony. In fact, Medicare can be a valuable benefit, but it's not cost free. And when people plan for it thoughtfully, it becomes part of a more complete and realistic retirement picture rather than an unpleasant surprise, like we said later on.
Well, and this is where a lot of people assume coverage exists, at least until they actually need it, right? Then they
Yeah.
find out the hard way.
Yes, 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 I agree. In fact, one of the most common misunderstandings is thinking Medicare covers all healthcare related expenses. But in reality, there are several important areas it doesn't cover at all. Medicare doesn't pay for most vision, hearing, or dental expenses. That
Hmm.
includes things like eyeglasses, hearing aids, and dental procedures, and those costs can add up quickly.
Yeah, and what's frustrating about that is those are the 3 things, vision, hearing, and dental, those aren't rare or unusual needs, especially for seniors, right? I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
those are the most common things people need as they get older.
Exactly, they are. And that's why the article emphasizes the importance of thinking ahead. Now, if you expect to have expenses in these areas, it's important to understand the potential costs and decide whether they'll fit into your retirement budget or possibly an emergency fund.
Hmm.
Now, the article also highlights another major gap on top of that, and that often surprises a lot of people. Medicare does not cover long term care expenses, Tony. And according to the survey reference, only about one third of respondents were actually aware of that.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's not good.
Nope.
I think that, you have to plan ahead. It's not just about coverage and budgets. It shows up in every day, but long-term care is a big one, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And overlooking, let's say, these uncovered expenses can actually create strain later on, especially if they haven't been factored into the plan ahead of time. So, awareness doesn't eliminate the cost. Now, make sure you remember that. But it does give people the chance to actually start preparing for them thoughtfully.
Right. Right. And again, you have to plan. And again, it's not just about the budgets. It's going to show up every day. You have to understand these things.
Yes. And the article makes the point that lifestyle decisions can also play a meaningful role in long term healthcare costs. In fact, about half of the survey respondents who were age 65 and over said they would advise their younger selves to maintain a healthy diet and take better care of their health to help manage healthcare costs in retirement. And the takeaway here applies no matter what your age is. Improving things like your diet, exercise, sleep habits can certainly benefit your health and may even help reduce some healthcare expenses over time. And I would like to also add your mental health is important as well.
Oh, it really is. And it sounds like you're being careful not to oversell that idea, right?
Yeah, because while healthy habits are valuable, there's also no guarantee they'll prevent every expensive medical condition.
Sure.
So that's why the article emphasizes balance by making positive lifestyle choices while still planning ahead for healthcare coverage that fits your budget and being then prepared for your out of pocket expenses. So remember, healthy habits can be a part of the picture, but they shouldn't replace thoughtful planning. They both matter.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. They definitely both matter. And before we keep going with our conversation today, Albert, let our listeners know if they have more questions about what we're talking about today, or want to get a plan in place or get a second opinion on where they're at, or how
Yes.
healthcare planning is going to factor into their financial plans and retirement income plans. How can they get a hold of you to set up that no charge, no obligation consultation?
Yes, folks, if you want to understand your budget for or your expenses for your healthcare in retirement, or you don't have a financial plan together, please give us a call, 586-752-7008, or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com, Kaizen, Kaizen. And we can put together a plan so you can understand what your numbers look like so you guys can own your retirement.
All right. Well, great show so far today. And getting back to the topic, it feels like this is the point where a lot of people, Albert, try to do everything on their own.
Yes, 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 it does. And the article is pretty clear about what the data shows here, too. According to the survey, it references retirees who work with the financial service professional are far more likely to have a plan for healthcare costs in retirement. Now, in fact, respondents who work with the financial service professionals were more than twice as likely to have a plan to pay for healthcare costs in retirement compared to those who don't. And they were also more than twice as likely to have estimated what those healthcare costs might actually be for them.
Right. Yeah, and that's huge. And I think that's a pretty stark difference, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And yet, only about one third respondents reported working with the financial service professional at all. So there's a real gap between what seems to help and what people are actually
Yeah.
doing. Now, with that said, the article also makes the important point that working with a financial service professional isn't automatically enough either. Not all financial service professionals help their clients plan specifically for healthcare costs in retirement. So make sure you understand the difference.
Yeah, and basically it's not just whether you work with somebody like yourself, but how that conversation happens.
Yes, you've actually hit the nail on the head there, Tony. One of the smartest questions someone can ask a potential financial service professional is whether they'll help develop a plan to manage healthcare costs in retirement. That topic needs to be part of the conversation, not an afterthought. Now, the article wraps up by acknowledging that addressing all five of these mistakes can feel like a lot of work, but ignoring them, well, that can lead to some very real consequences. Survey respondents said that high medical expenses in retirement could actually force them to cut back on travel and other non essential spending, or take on a part time job, or even cut back on their health care itself, which isn't good.
Yeah. Well, and that brings it full circle, I think, because there aren't abstract planning issues. These aren't so abstract. They affect day-to-day life for
Yeah,
for everybody.
for
Yeah.
sure. And remember, planning ahead for healthcare costs isn't about perfection. It's about giving yourself more choices,
Yeah.
more stability, and a better chance to maintain both your financial well being and your quality of life throughout retirement.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, keeping this conversation going, let's look at a CBS News article that is now headlined Five Smart Ways to Manage Healthcare Costs During Retirement. I think this piece builds nicely on what we've already discussed by now shifting from common mistakes to how to use practical strategies.
Right. And that shift is helpful once you understand where people tend to stumble. I think it's reassuring to talk about what you can do instead.
Mhm. I agree. In fact, the article starts by acknowledging something many people feel. Retirement planning can be exciting, but it also can be overwhelming. The idea of retirement isn't itself is appealing, but saving enough and planning well enough, well, it can feel like a heavy lift. So, one of the points it makes early on is that a solid retirement plan is about more than just account balances lining up neatly on paper. Once you factor in things like healthcare, the picture becomes, well, a bit more complex.
Yeah, it does. I mean, healthcare seems to be the wild card that it can complicate everything.
Yeah, it often is. In fact, the article points out that while Medicare can help cover some healthcare expenses in retirement, it doesn't cover everything. Figuring out how to address those gaps takes work, but it's work that matters. And then healthcare costs are rising as well, as we're seeing. And without a thoughtful approach, medical expenses can put actually real pressure on a retirement plan. That's why the article lays out five strategies retirees and pre retirees can consider to manage those costs more effectively.
So instead of just pointing out risks, this is where the conversation turns towards solutions.
Yes, for sure. And the first strategy the article highlights is purchasing, let's say, a long term care insurance policy. Long term care can become a significant expense, particularly if someone needs help with daily activities, let's say due to an illness, disability, or the natural aging process. Now, these policies are designed to help cover costs associated with things like nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and in home care. Some policies may also cover hospice or other long term care related services.
Well, and timing seems to be important here, right?
It is. In fact, according to the article, premiums are largely influenced by age and health status. Securing a policy earlier can mean more favorable premiums and have a safety net in place if care is needed later on.
Right. And that is really important. And that's one way people can plan for very specific risk, but it's not the only tool you have, right?
Oh my gosh, no. In fact, the next strategy focuses on health savings accounts or HSAs. Now, we're seeing a lot more of these, which is good. These accounts offer a tax advantage way to save for medical expenses before and during retirement, as long as someone is eligible to contribute. Now, HSAs allow for tax deductible contributions, tax free withdrawals for qualified medical expenses, and unused funds can actually be rolled over from year to year. Now, over time, that flexibility can actually help build a meaningful healthcare reserve.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we all need. And thankfully it's not a use it or lose it situation, is it?
Yes. And in retirement, those funds can be used to help cover Medicare premiums as well, deductibles, co-payments, and even long-term care expenses. So the article positions HSAs as a versatile tool for managing healthcare costs across over your whole retirement time.
Right. Well, and for people who want even more predictability and stability, there are ways to address those gaps that Medicare leaves behind, right?
Yeah, there definitely is. In fact, another option the article discusses is Medicare supplemental insurance, often referred to as Medigap. Now, while Medicare provides essential coverage, it doesn't pay for everything. That's where Medigap policies are designed to help cover things like co-payments, deductibles, and co-insurance that traditional Medicare leaves behind.
Yeah. And really, this is about reducing surprises,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to think about it. Medigap plans are offered by private insurers and come in different levels of coverage. Now, choosing a plan that aligns with your needs can help manage out of pocket expenses and add predictability to healthcare spending in retirement. And then the article also points out that some employers offer health reimbursement arrangements or HRAs as part of retirement benefits. Now, an HRA is funded by the employer and can be used to reimburse qualified medical expenses, including Medicare premiums and other insurance costs.
Right. But not everybody has access to an HRA, correct?
Oh no, and that's the thing. The important point that why this article emphasizes understanding whether this benefit exists and if it does, how it works. See, when used effectively, an HRA can provide another layer of support for managing healthcare expenses in retirement. The final strategy, though, the article highlights focuses on, well, prevention and accessibility. Many insurance plans now offer telehealth services, which allow people to actually consult with healthcare professionals from home. This actually can save time and potentially reduce costs by addressing issues earlier rather than later.
And that ties into preventative care as well, doesn't it?
Yes, for sure. In fact, staying proactive with regular checkups, screenings, and vaccinations can help identify potential health concerns earlier. And then let's put it this way, better earlier so it doesn't cost so much later and it's easier to manage. And now prevention doesn't eliminate the risk, but it can reduce the likelihood of more expensive treatments down the road. So basically, the article's bottom line is that navigating healthcare costs in retirement takes a thoughtful and proactive approach. By combining strategies like long term care insurance, HSAs, Medigap policies, HRAs, and preventative care, retirees actually can build a more resilient healthcare safety net. And then at the same time, it's important to evaluate your own needs and circumstances. So remember, there's no single solution that works for everyone, but planning ahead and working with the financial service professional, well, that helps protect both retirement savings and the quality of your life.
Yeah. And that really reinforces, Albert, what you've been saying throughout this episode, which is that healthcare planning is not a side topic. It needs to be central. It needs to be part of your overall financial plan and retirement plan.
It is. In fact, when healthcare is addressed intentionally, it becomes part of retirement plans that's actually designed to support not just longevity, but stability and peace of mind.
So, this has been a great show. We're out of time, Albert. Is there anything else for our listeners you'd like to add?
Folks, if you have questions about your retirement and your financial strategy or what your medical could look like in retirement, please visit my website at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com, Kaizen, or call my office at 586-752-7008. Let's put a plan together for you. Let's help protect what you've been working so hard for, and let's have you own your retirement.
All right. Thanks, Albert. Listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Own Your Retirement with our host, Albert Lalonde.
Take care, everybody.